for streaming decided to just pop open earlier, and I was like, exactly. As I was putting it in like the thing to hold it, it went pop. I was like, cool. Well, this is good to start exactly on time. So apologies for running. And it also won't connect, so I can't play the all things at once. So, Cloudy, do you want to just introduce it all and then let me know what you want me to do? I've kind of got ideas of what I'm going to say anyway.
Yeah, cool. No worries. So first off, hello guys, welcome back to your Songwriting 101. This week we have been analysing the song Human Nature, originally by Steve Porcaro and the rest of Toto, but made famous by Michael Jackson. So there's a couple of things I want to say first about the vocals and keys, and then we're going to get Chris involved to break down the drums in this track. So first thing I wanted to have a mention of is the reverb on the vocals. So this is a really cool thing to do. They've got a super long pre-delay on the reverb on the vocals, and that makes them sound both wet and dry at the same time, which is really, really cool. It's actually a really good technique to use if you want to bring your vocals forwards in the mix, and that's the effect that it has. If I go to the verse, what's the time code? I actually wrote the time codes down this time. So 2:15, if I play that part, verse number 2, you guys will be able to hear it, that you'll hear that there's wet and dry qualities to that vocal, and they really are coming forwards in terms of prominence in the mix there. And also, if we're going to play verse 3, actually not verse 2, if we play verse 3, we can also hear that there's, oh my goodness, my dog is here, hello. We can also hear, you're that excited about this song. We can also hear in that verse that we've got some delay happening. Those delays in the chorus, you know, those really cool modulated delays that we were talking about yesterday, they stay for verse 3 as well, and that kind of contributes to that sense of momentum that the track's got. So let's listen to that verse number 3 and look out for those prominent wet/dry vocals and that those delays in there as well.
Out across the moment, the city's heart begins to bleed. Reaching out, I touch her shoulder. I'm dreaming of a street. If they think,
and that would leading us right into the chorus there, but hopefully you guys noticed sort of midway through the verse they had all these modulated delays coming back, and I think those are really cool. I think I might have to do some of that sort of stuff in some of my new music. Okay, so there is also vocally another thing that I wanted to point out, and it's about pitch correction. So this is kind of one of those things in when you're recording, that it's just a given in today's music industry that everyone uses pitch correct on their vocals, even if you're an amazing singer, like even if you're Beyonce or Ariana Grande or anyone incredible that you can think of that does all those fancy runs and things that require you to be bang on pitch. It's not to say we're going to like use auto-tune to make us sound like T-Pain. It's just a little helping hand to make the vocal sound the best that they can. Tiny little thing, very natural sounding, so quite a lot of the time you can't even pick it out. Chris has his hand up.
No, not a question as such, more a statement.
Go for it.
But I feel like we should attempt to change that a bit. Like I feel like we should put out some songs that don't have that, and we should talk about it. And I think that it's getting so bad now with that on chart music, even though it's happening all the way through to heavy metal and every different style that you can imagine, even down to putting it on the guitar.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? Crazy.
My nan made a really good comment the other day. She's like, "Oh, it just sounds all like so, like like computerized and perfect in the singing." And I'm like, "That's exactly what it is." And like and okay, music changes and that's all good, and but stuff has got extremely so much so it's like that. I think it'll come back around. So I'm making a prediction that in the next 5 to 10 years we're going to hear a bit more organic, but a few more singers. So coming back and not doing that and making a thing about it. So Cloudy, I think you should be one of the first to do it and talk about it out loud.
Definitely. And you know what's made me really happy about that is that that's exactly where I was going next. So you took the thought right out of my head. But yeah, basically,
either, guys. So I didn't. It's not like I read Cloudy's script the other days when I've been reading it. So I didn't know. Sorry for
no problem. I like the back and forth. Yeah, that's funny, guys. We didn't actually have a script today, so this is literally just us talking about it. No, but there's a point in verse 1, right, of this track, this Human Nature track, where Michael's actually flat. But it's only by a tiny bit, and the rest of the take around it sounded so good, you don't even notice it in the track. And that's because back then, right, all of these autotune sort of stuff, it didn't exist. Not in the same way it does now. It just wasn't available. So you had to just track things perfectly, and that was that's what you had to do. And so it's just really cool that if it's good enough for Michael Jackson to be a bit flat in one of his verses, to maintain the integrity of the rest of the vocal take, it's definitely good enough for us. So let's see if we can listen and see if you guys can spot it where he's flat. I'll give you a hint. It's in the line "seducing sights." So have a little listen to this, see if you can spot it.
Shake my window, sweet seducing sights.
Did you hear it? It's literally the tiniest little bit, but when he's going from "se" and into "du," there's too much pressure here, and so he doesn't open his mouth enough, and he doesn't get that note out clearly. But it's the tiniest little thing, and they just left it in there because it makes it feel human.
Is it sharp or flat?
It's flat.
Yeah, it is. And it on that note, like, so they did have access to it. That people don't realize how. And I think it was. I don't want to be quoted incorrectly here, but I think it was even done on some of the Beatles recordings. So tuning and pitch correction went back that far. It just wasn't auto tuning.
Yeah.
And they had to
manually do it, right? Exactly. Yeah. So it not in the same way as now. You can just click a button and it does it for you, right? So it wasn't the same back then for sure. And I think. Yeah, I just think that's really cool. The whole track is called Human Nature. So the whole thing is about that. And so to leave that little error in is human, and it just reflects the vibe of the whole track. I just think that's a really nice thing to do. And, if it's good enough for Michael Jackson, guys, it's good enough for us.
I do have a question this time.
Okay.
Why do singers tend to sing more often than not when they do go out of tune? Why is it flat more than sharp?
That's a really, really interesting question.
I have theories, but I don't know from a singer's point of view. I always hear flat, like then that just you can just tell that it's flat, right? I don't even know why, but why is it flat and sharp? Do you know?
This is my best guess. I think there's probably a few different reasons as to why. My guess is two-part. The first part is that when you're a singer and you're visualizing the notes that you need to get to, a lot of the time you visualize it in terms of steps. So you're coming up to the step. And so if you haven't quite got it, it means that you're kind of approaching it from underneath. So when I was taught to sing, I was always taught to imagine that you're coming down to the note, and that way your tuning and pitching is going to be a lot better. But a more technical response to that question is probably because of like I was saying, the pressure here and from the back of your tongue, and sometimes straining your neck muscles as well. All of that closes your mouth, and it makes it harder to reach those notes. If you've got a closed space, then there's less space to reach those notes clearly, and that translates into flat notes. Whereas if you've got a really open space, maybe too open, is where the sharps come in.
And in terms of like MJ, am I right in saying his kind of vocal training? Obviously, he probably had lots of different ones, but he was at some point trained using the speech level singing theory, which is to kind of keep the larynx down, and works more on going downwards, right, landing on the note rather than up. Is that right?
That's what I would expect from the way he sings, but it is interesting because especially on the way he says seducing, he pushes his consonants out quite a lot, and that's where the tension comes in, and so that's probably why he was flat in this little part of it.
Yeah, cool. Interesting.
Yeah, right. Definitely. Cool. All right. So there was one more thing I wanted to say about this track as well, and then I'll hand it over to you, Chris. But it's just about keyboards. Basically, this whole track is pretty much built of loads of different layers of synths and synth basses and pads and everything. And so there's lots of different things that kind of come in and out during the song. And it's the function of that is to let us know when different sections are coming in. And so that's another thing that you can take from this song and put into your own, is just thinking, okay, this little pad, for example, usually lets us know that we're coming into a chorus, or this little synth detail over here is a new element, and that gives us a little bit of momentum and gives us that variation so that we're not bored in a track that stays fairly level throughout. And so all these layered sounds over the top of each other as well, they give us this rich depth, this kind of washy feeling that's really unique to this track, and definitely has been emulated across the years since it's been imitated. But you know what? It's because it sounds so good, especially in chorus 3. They've got loads of stuff going on. So let's have a quick listen to that. I've got the time code here. Okay, so let's have a little listen. There's loads more backing vocals and stuff here up this point of it as well. So look out for that. This is a really good example of building elements.
If they say why, tell them that it's human nature. Why does he do it that way? If they say why, tell them why does he do it that way? If they say why, does he do it that way? If they say just does he do it that way?
All right, we'll stop it there because we're going into outro ad-libs territory. But see how there was so much more to work with, more pads, more little soft synth details, a lot more vocal ideas in that as well. So that's another thing you can do when you're kind of getting on to the end, is chuck a double chorus on there and introduce a bunch of new elements. Nothing clashed in there. Everything had its own space, but it felt like, oh, okay, we're coming to the end of the track. We're in the like where you'd expect the build to be, you know, the peak of the track. So that's just something to point out. But I think now we should have a look at the drums. So what do you reckon, Chris? What's going on in this track?
So I'm going to keep it really simple and like top level on the drums. In fact, I'll sit here because I'm going to screen otherwise. And it's really a case of the way that they've captured the feel, and like you said, it's very much in the background rather than in the forefront. And they've obviously got a few options in the ways that you can approach playing this. And I'm specifically looking at this from MJ version and what they've done. I'm not even thinking about kind of original and how it might translate. They've taken this as a cover. They can choose to do it however they want, right? So
it was actually the same musicians that did all of the Thriller album, by the way. So the people that I was saying that wrote it, the Steve Porcaro and Toto, they were all the same musicians that did all the instrumentals for Michael Jackson on that album. So it's actually them playing it.
It's all the same stuff, exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of, I guess it's probably relevant to both versions of it. But when you sit down and you obviously choose to write a song or cover it or whatever you're doing, obviously the feel of it is huge, and the drums has a massive impact on how that feels. And I'm just going to play a couple of things on the pots and pans. It's not the high production value that MJ has got on his tracks, but I think it's important just to kind of point them out. So I'm going to try and move this up a little bit. Hopefully you guys can see this all fall over. Sorry, it's a bit wonky. And what they're doing here is they're playing what we refer to as a half-time feel. So that's the important bit, really. And if I just play it, you can hear what I'm talking about, just so that it makes sense. Now, what's also interesting is that at the end of every loop, they do a fill, which is a little extra added bit that they do. That's quite rare on MJ tracks that aren't parts. Normally, when you listen to it, the drums are stripped back and they only play fills leading to different sections. That's quite interesting. I haven't listened to it in enough detail. I don't know whether it's a loop or if they played the whole way through. I imagine it's probably a live tape from start to finish, but they've just nailed a loop. I haven't listened to it enough to kind of be able to assess and give you a definite answer for that. But that song is really interesting as well because he would be so, let's be careful my words here, but so perfectionist about how he would want this MJ, and when you watch anything studio, that they'd have had to have nailed this, and I'd imagine he'd want it to be keeping in the kind of theme of the track of it being, you know, kind of natural. They're going to have taken it and done it in one take, and it's actually really hard to get that. So that's one thing on the feels, but in terms of the feel of the track, FEEL, they could have played it like this. So, played it like this. All of a sudden, we changed that feel. Completely different, right? This. But a lot of people would love this. So, instead of that would change the whole feeling of the track. It wouldn't allow for that big open, all those reverbs and those sounds to be like, it would completely clash right in the middle of that and would change the vibe of it. So all the other parts that they needed to change. So we've got the drums are integral for the feel of this track. If you remove them, it would feel quite different. Yet you don't even really think about the drums. And that's an interesting thing because all I ever do is listen to drums. When I think about this track, I didn't even know what the drums were. And I said to the thing like lyrics, I don't really listen to the lyrics or the melody, but the thing that sticks out to me immediately is the my brain had no space for the drums, right? And I probably played this on stage at some point. You know, like it might have been sight read, but I would imagine I played this song. Yeah, I didn't know what the drums were, and that's really rare. So that's an accomplishment in itself to be able to put a part in that's integral, so important, yet not noticed. So that's all I'd say about the drums in this track is they're so crucial, yet have no recognition. Not as in like the musicians as a group of musicians, but the drums are just they go unnoticed, which is exactly what they were there to do in this particular case.
Absolutely, I would agree with that. I think the value is the space. There's a certain art in leaving space for the rest of the musicians that you're working with, and so it's very difficult to get that right, and they've really done that well in this track. Value in space.
Space whilst keeping the upbeat feel, because they could have done something on the shakers. You know, if you could do that.
Absolutely. Loses a lot of momentum, that.
It keeps it driving. That shaky, you remove that, the song sounds different again. Right?
100%.
So, yes, there's space, but it's being constantly played. That's what's clever about it.
That's the art form, for sure.
Yeah. So, cool. All right, Cloudy, I'll let you sign off, and we will see you guys all next Monday from 1 for Pots and Pans, and then Songwriting 101 at 1:15. Anything else you want to add, Cloudy?
Not really. I think you covered all of that. Looking forward to next week. I wonder what our song will be. If you've got any suggestions, guys, you can always hit us up. Probably DM us on Instagram is the best way, CK Music Academy, or you can DM me if you're one of my people from that side. It's all good. Let us know what you want to hear or what you want us to analyse, and we'll catch you on Monday.
Ciao for now.
Bye.